네, 오늘 제가 뉴욕에서 다녀와서 이 첫 번째 스케줄로 여의도 63빌딩에 와 있습니다. 사실 이 뉴욕에 있을 때도 월스트리트 분들을 이렇게 만나는 게 아주 쉽진 않아요. 근데 오늘 이 여의도에 이 월스트리트에서 직접 비행기를 타고 오신 분들이 대거 출동을 한다고 해가지고 제가 귀국 후 첫 스케줄로 이 63빌딩에 오기로 했습니다. 그래서 오늘은 이 월스트리트 분들이 오셔서 뭔가 우리 투자자들에게 도움이 될 만한 이야기들이 있을 것 같아요. 그래서 오늘 어떤 내용으로 우리의 마켓을 이 월가 분들은 보고 계신지 같이 이야기를 나눠보면서 우리 투자자분들에게 도움이 될 만한 이야기들을 직접 들어보려고 합니다. 한번 같이 가보실까요? 사실 여기 개인 투자자들한테 공개가 된 행사는 아니에요. 주로 이제 기관분들에게 이제 초대를 해가지고 좀 프라이빗하게 열리는 행사인데 한경 코리아 마켓에서 또 개미 투자자들을 위해서 여기 왔죠. 무슨 얘기 하는지 들어보고 우리도 기관처럼 또 움직여야 되지 않겠습니까? 여기 보면은 써있죠. 2023년 코리아 KFS 포럼 지금 조금 이따 열리는데 이 KFS라는 단체가 어떤지 모르시는 분들도 있어요. 사실 월가라는 데가 굉장히 아직까지 폐쇄적이고 또 그만큼 백인, 특히 좀 남성 중심의 그런 어떤 서로 밀어주고 끌어주는 문화들 그런 게 너무 강력한 거죠. 그래서 사실 이 한인, 이 코리안들이 월가에 많지만 뭐 그런 점에서 굉장히 많은 벽이 있었다고 해요. 이 월가에 있는 한국인분들이 한국인들만의 서로 도움이 되는 커뮤니티를 만들어서 우리도 월가에서 성공을 해보자 그렇게 해서 만들어진 거고, 그리고 이제 이 단체가 좀 커지면서 사실은 조금 더 이제 확장을 한 거죠. 이런 또 느낌으로 좋은 취지의 행사를 점점 더 범위를 넓히고 있다. 이렇게 볼 수가 있을 것 같아요.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 그 뉴욕에서 지금 앵커리지 캐피털 그룹이라는 그 크레딧 펀드에서 근무하고 있는 마크엠이라고 하고요. 지금 KFS라는 그 뉴욕 한인 금융인 협회에서 회장을 올해부터 맡게 되었습니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 그 KFS의 이제 집행위원으로 있고 한국에서 이제 연락사무소의 공동대표를 맡고 있는 이종원이라고 하고, 저는 IMM 크레딧 앤 솔루션이라는 이제 운용사에서 국내에서 활동하고 있습니다.
안녕하십니까. 저는 스텔라 인베스트먼트의 이사로 있는 류형우라고 합니다. KFS 뉴욕 한인금융인협회에서는 뉴욕 집행위원 및 한국연락사무소 공동대표로 이종원 차장이랑 같이 맡고 있습니다.
KFS가 사실은 이제 뉴욕 한인 그 월가에 근무하는 분들의 네트워크였는데 여의도에는 왜 오신 건가요?
저희가 사실 그 이종원 차장도 그렇고 저도 그렇고 원래 뉴욕에서 일을 하던 사람들입니다.
네.
월가에서 활동을 하다가 한국에 돌아온 어떻게 보면 KFS 얼럼나이
네.
동문에 해당을 하는데, 한국에서 뭘 할 수 있을까? 우리가 어쨌든 고국이랑 뉴욕 월가에서 잘 나가는 한인들이랑 좀 교류를 하면 좋겠는데, 가화만사성이라고 고국에서 먼저 잘 돼야 되는데 국민연금도 지금 세계 2위 사이즈인데 그러니까 교류가 없는 거예요. 다 잘해가지고. 근데 요거를 우리가 다리를 놓아주고 가교 역할을 함으로써 좀 선순환 고리를 만들 수 있지 않을까라고 코로나 동안 계속 셋이서 고민을 하다가 결국 이렇게 국내 기관 투자자들하고 뉴욕에 잘 나가는 한인 금융인들하고 연결해주는 자리를 만들게 되었습니다.
사실 저희가 KFS가 이제 뉴욕에서 많이 컸어요. 뭐 이제 액티브한 멤버도 2,000명 넘게 있고 인액티브한 멤버까지 한 10,000명이 넘는데, 우리가 미국에서 이만큼 파워를 느꼈는데 사실 한국에 돌아오면 국내에도 기관 투자자분들의 규모가 사실은 전 세계적인 규모라고 볼 수 있거든요. 그러니까 우리나라 전체로 따지면. 하지만 이제 우리나라의 이제 뭐 연금, 그러니까 제가 이제 수령할 수 있는 연금을 운영함에 있어서 더 좋은 대접을 나가서 받고 그래야지만 저희 수익률이 올라가는 이런 유수한 한인들이 월가에서 잘하고 있는데, 우리의 연금들은 거기서 조금 더 좋은 서비스를 받아야 되지 않는가라는 거에 조금 착안을 해서 그럼 이 둘을 간격을 잇자. 그래서 나도 연금을 받을 수 있고
저희 나이 먹으면 연금 받으려고.
네, 나이 먹고 연금 받으려고 좀 이런 가교 역할을 하자라고 이제 마크 회장님께 저희가 쫄랐고,
네.
그래서 마크 회장님께서 그때부터 열심히 시니어분들을 이제 독려하셔서 오늘 행사까지 오게 되었습니다.
뉴욕과 한국을 잇는 행사가 된 거네요.
네, 맞습니다. 저희가 실은 작년에도 비슷한 행사를 한 번 했거든요.
네.
근데 그때는 이제 그 서울권에서 한 60명 상대로 소규모로 행사를 했는데 그게 벌써 1년 전이네요. 근데 그 이후로 KFS에 많은 관심을 많이 가져주시고
네.
저희가 뉴욕에서 이제 1,500명이 참석해주시고 지금 올해 행사에서는 200명까지 와주시는데 여러모로 지금 많은 분들이 이렇게 관심 가져주시고, 무엇보다 KFS의 거의 핵심 포인트는 커뮤니티, 서로 도와주고 멘토링해주고 취업 도와주고 여러모로 지금 좀 커뮤니티를 형성시키는 모임인데요. 이 부분을 한국인들이 미국에서 저희끼리 하지 말고 한국에 있는 분들 저희들 가족도 있고 뭐 동문들, 동료들 다 있으니까 서로 다 도와주자 하는 식으로 작년부터 결성하게 되어서 올해 지금 좀 더 열심히 하려고 노력하고 있습니다.
근데 또 좀 궁금한 거는 그래도 아까 다 투자 사이드에 있으니까 약간 지금 그러면 우리가 이 전통적으로 투자했던 주식이나 뭐 이런 것들을 제외하고서라도 좀 가장 유망하게 지금 보여지거나 또 이렇게 좀 기관분들한테 새롭게 좀 소개하고 연결해 주려고 하는 뭐 새로운 자산, 뭐 에셋이 좀 있을까요?
뭐 아시다시피 뭐 최근 금리 환경이 올라갔기 때문에 사실 저희가 흔히 말하는 이제 전통 자산군 중에서는 크레딧이라든지 아니면 뭐 인프라스트럭처, 그러니까 안정성과 이제 수익성이 동반된 자산들이 좀 저희는 각광을 받는다고 생각을 하고요. 물론 VC나 프라이빗 에퀴티도 여전히 매력적인 자산이지만 좀 이렇게 금리 환경이 변화하면서 저희가 맞이할 수 있는 매크로 환경이 좀 다르기 때문에 저희는 뭐 개인적으로는 좀 그쪽으로도 집중을 하고 있는 상황입니다. 그리고 실제로 저희한테 어떤 자산군에 관심이 있냐라고 저희가 좀 받았는데 거기서도 좀 많이 나온 게 인프라, 크레딧 그런 쪽도 많이 있으셨고요. 그래서 저희도 뭐 저희만의 의견이 아니라 어느 정도 컨센서스가 있는 것 같다라는 의견.
네, 제가 하나 추가를 드리자면요. 대한민국의 대체 투자 시장이 지난 2010년 이후로 본격적으로 많이 커지고 계시고 기관 정도 있는 거 알고 있거든요. 근데 2010년도 당시에는 금리가 0이었고 미국에서는 현재 지금 5.25%까지 올라갔는데 그래서 여러모로 그 채권이라는 게 많은 분들 관심을 가져주시고 뭐 이게 direct lending, opportunity credit 뭐 이런 부분에서 좀 다양한 분들이 관심을 가주신다는 의견을 저희 설문조사 통해서 나왔습니다.
그럼에도 불구하고 사실 설문조사 같은 거를 하면은 그로스 에퀴티나 테크 쪽에 대한 갈망이 가장 높게 나오는데 그런 이유는 저희가 생각하기에는 아무래도 하방이 막히지 않으면은 해외향 투자에 있어서는 그 분야의 투자를 승인받기가 가장 어렵기 때문에 원하는 것 대비 노출이 작은 걸로 좀 해석을 할 수 있다고 봐요.
Please say hello to our viewers and please to briefly introduce your company and what kind of field you're in charge of in your company.
Hi, I'm Stellar Tucker. I'm a managing director and the head of the Technology Corporate and Investment Banking Group at Truist Securities in the United States. Truist Securities was formed by the merger of BB&T and SunTrust Robinson Humphreys about 3 years ago, and we're now the number 6 largest bank in the United States.
Actually, just tech is the maybe most hot just keyword in the US market in the first half. Could you just briefly talk about the current climate of the institution in your field?
In the United States, we're coming off of basically almost 2 years of a market downturn, especially in the technology sector. I would say that the first half of this year, you've seen a market recovery of sorts, specifically in tech. I would say that it's not necessarily a broad market recovery, and even within tech, it's been dominated by certain subsectors, mostly focused on AI, generative machine learning, AI technology. And so you've seen a lot of stocks go up, but I would also say that the macro environment still remains challenging. We've got higher interest rates. We've got inflation is still above where the federal government would like to see it, and you're going to see that unemployment still remains very tight. So I think until we get inflation and some of the hotness, if you will, of the U.S. economy down a little bit, it's still going to remain a very challenging marketplace, at least in the near term. But we are hopeful of a recovery going into 2024.
Do you guys still see the chance in the technology side, or do you think we need to take a break a little bit? So because there are a lot of Korean investors already invested in the tech, especially US big tech stocks, so they're really interested in this field. So what do you guys think about the tech, this guy's tech market?
So the technology sector as a whole is more of a horizontal space. Every industry touches technology versus a specific vertical sector. So I think within tech, there still remains a lot of opportunity in terms of stock price appreciation, company upside, and it really is about picking the subsectors within tech that is still, I would say, argue undervalued today. And so, certain ones have, like I mentioned, have gone up considerably, while others remain depressed, especially in the fintech space, for example, or consumer tech. That still remains very challenged, and I think that there'll be opportunities for investors to still make money at the end of the day in those spaces.
Most of our viewers are retail investors in Korea, so could you just give us any advice that how to pick a good company or good assets that which is pretty positive in the near future?
So investors in the tech space have historically focused almost entirely on growth, on revenue growth, top line growth. I will say that the recent downturn we've seen investors focus much more on growth plus profitability. So software companies that had tremendous top line growth but not producing any cash flow, for example, during the market peak into 2021, had a lot of investors really supporting those stocks. I would say today investors are much more focused on not just having some growth, but also being profitable companies who actually generate cash flow. And that difference in investment thesis actually will support, I would say mature companies who have more proof of sustainability. And I would encourage Korean investors to focus on those names, at least in the near term, versus the very hot markets of 2021, which in some ways led to the downturn in 2022.
Thank you so
Thank you.
Please just briefly introduce the company you belong to, just for those who don't really know about your company.
Sure. I am the co-founder and managing partner of One Rock Capital Partners, which is a private equity firm based in New York.
Then could you take on any example that you guys invested in the past? Is there any famous company that we can know? Or?
One Rock was the acquirer of a bottled water business from Nestle, and some of the brands include Poland Spring, Arrowhead, and things like that.
Wow, quite big deal. What kind of field you are in charge of in your company? I know you are co-founder, but these days, what are you more focusing on?
I'm actually focused more on growing our firm and hiring, and we recently opened an office in London, and we now have a number of investment professionals based in London. We spend most of our time buying real economy businesses, so think industrials, companies that make products, package products, and deliver products.
I've never been to London these days, but I heard that the UK economy is pretty bad these days. Is there any other reason that you made a new office these days in London?
So you're absolutely right. We're using London as a base for European investments. And Europe these days, there's quite a bit of turmoil. Obviously, with the war in Ukraine catalyzing a lot of disruption. As an investor, this is precisely the time when one should be looking at making investments. And so that is one of the reasons why we have set up an office there. Europe is quite a large and deep market. We feel it's a very good time for us to be there.
In Europe, is there any specific country that you guys really are focusing on these days, other than just British or any other country?
Yes, actually, we have many portfolio companies already today, and about 25% of our factories are already in Europe, scattered across over 20 different countries. To answer your question, there isn't a specific area that we are looking at. We have made investments in places like Germany, Austria, France, etc.
And then I heard that the activity of the private equity in the United States last year was pretty bad because of the economy and the stock market. What is the climate of the institution in the private equity field these days?
Private equity had gone through a very long period of low interest rates and plenty of financing to help acquire businesses. And as a result, things got a little easy, and valuations kept going higher and higher. And this was over a very long period of time, 5, 7, 10 years. And there was a small disruption, obviously, with COVID, but by and large, things came right back very strongly in 2021. Starting in 2022, when the Fed started raising interest rates, and we've had quite a rapid increase in rates over a very short period of time, that has changed the landscape dramatically. Although interest rates are not very high, historically speaking, relative to the last years or so, it is very high. And that dramatic change is what has caused a lot of turmoil in the U.S. and the private equity markets.
And you guys still invest in U.S. market too, right?
That is primarily where we are investing in, yes.
So actually, these days, Korean retail investors are really interested in the U.S. market as well, because the Fed's decision really affects to the Korean market as well. So how do you see the overview of the U.S. just economy in second half, or your house view?
I think the consumer will come under pressure. This is our view. The consumer is still roughly 70% of the US economy, and we haven't seen the full effect of the higher interest rates. For example, many consumers have not really felt higher interest payments on their mortgages, for example, as they had locked in for a number of years a much lower interest rate. Every month that goes by, there are more and more US consumers that are forced to pay a higher monthly payment. Same goes with credit card payments as well as car payments, and that is really taking a bite out of everybody's wallets. On top of that, there should be a return to paying student loans. That was on hold for 3 years or so. So that should be another payment that will compete for consumers' capital. So we do see a little bit of pressure, perhaps sustained pressure on the consumer in the U.S.
Actually, just I know that private equity is a little different from the just common stock market. I think you guys can give a kind of advice to our viewers that how to pick a good company in this volatile market, or we think that the recession is coming someday soon, but we don't know if it comes or not. But could you just give any advice to our just retail investors, maybe just how to choose the good company or that kind of thing?
Well, I can tell you some of the characteristics that we are looking for in businesses. We like companies that are very well positioned in a defensible manner. In other words, we live in a very volatile world, and I think the future is going to be more volatile than it was in the last 5-7 years. And as a result, you need businesses that are going to be resilient. And so staying away from companies that may have a high fixed cost structure or a huge capital intensity, I think allows companies to be far more nimbler in adapting to a rapidly changing environment. So those are some of the aspects that we look for, companies that are defensible and very well positioned relative to the industry.
Thank you. And this is going to be the last question. And then since you guys have built a new office in London, for just our viewers, and is there just the industry that you guys see pretty positive in the near future? Any industry or any field that just, because we don't really know about the European countries.
Sure. We recently announced the acquisition of a flexible packaging business in Europe. It's a global business, but about 65% of the revenues come from Europe. And this is a business that makes packaging for food, beverage, and pharma. Luckily for us, people in Europe still eat, still drink, and they're still taking medicines. And as a result, this business, we believe, is well positioned. Companies like that playing in very stable end markets, we view as a good place to make investments.
Could you briefly introduce the company you belong to?
Charles Bank Capital Partners is a middle market private investment firm. We were started in 1998. Our team spun out of Harvard University's endowment. The team had originally managed capital for Harvard University's endowment. And we currently have 3 strategies. We have a middle market buyout strategy, a lower middle market technology software strategy, and a credit opportunistic strategy.
What is the current market climate of the institution in credit market these days? I know you guys are more focusing on the private credit, but these days a lot of just retail investors are really interested in the treasury bond market and the private credit market as well. So just could you briefly just introduce about that?
Sure. So credit market overall in the United States is very big. There's investment grade market, which is a very large market. There's a high yield bond market. There's a broadly syndicated loan market, and there's a private credit market. We focus on the middle market private credit asset class. Now, I think that there are the most opportunities within middle market private credit to generate 10 to 20% returns in secured debt of highly performing companies. And even though there is a lot of volatility in the market, and there's a lot of uncertainty where rates are going to go, historically, when you're able to generate 10 to 20% returns for companies with 5 to 6 turns of leverage on high quality businesses that can do okay in a recession, these are very attractive returns that we think investors can generate.
So how do you guys define the middle market? We don't just know the size of the company.
Sure. So the wide range of what people may talk about might be anywhere from $25 million to $300 million of EBITDA. Our current focus is in the range of $75 to $100 million of EBITDA or cash flow.
So do you guys think that the recession is going to come in second half or just in near future?
Sure. So it's very hard to call in terms of timing and severity of a recession. Do we think that the overall market is going to be very choppy? Do we think that many middle market companies will have challenges within the next couple of years? Absolutely, we do. Many of the challenges are driven by the fact that rates have gone from 0% to 5%. And so interest costs for many companies have doubled. In addition, although revenues have been flat to growing for many middle market high quality businesses, margins across the board have been challenged because of simply inflation. Whether it's inflation of hiring, inflation of transportation, there is a timing mismatch with an ability to actually pass through your prices. That has impacted margins. So revenues are flat, margins are down. That means that your debt to EBITDA or your leverage or your risk has gone up. In addition, there are many debt maturities that are coming due. The owners need to pay off the debt at maturity within the next couple of years, or the companies may restructure. And so there's a lot of stress in the system right now.
And actually a lot of the retail investors are pretty interested in the US economy as well. We don't know if the Fed is going to do more rate hike or not.
Sure.
So how do you think, and or just how do you analyze the second half, the US market and the economy as well?
I don't know exactly what rates are going to do. I don't know what the Fed is going to do. We are not complete experts around what the Fed is going to do. Having said that, as an investor, I think the most attractive place to invest is where you're investing in secured debt. So safer parts of the capital structure, if there's secured debt, unsecured debt, and equity, invest in the top of the capital structure in secured debt. Invest in floating rate debt. So if rates go from 5% to 7%, you will benefit as an investor in companies that can do okay in a recession. So that's what I would recommend to institutional investors and retail investors. And we mentioned earlier how if you can generate 10 to 20% returns in secured debt with floating rate instruments in high quality businesses, that is a very attractive risk-adjusted return.
And that sounds really attractive. And then is there any other assets that you guys think that is really promising in second half or next year as well?
Sure, and so we don't try to time the market. So we are long-term investors.
Right.
We are really looking at how are these businesses going to operate under different economic scenarios in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. In the next couple of quarters, it's always harder to actually call that. But again, we focus on high quality businesses that can do okay in a recession. So we stay away from a lot of energy companies. We stay away from a lot of retail companies. We stay away from companies that we don't fully understand that are in a specialized, sector within infrastructure.
Thank you. And then is there any other advice that you want to talk to the Korean investors, just including retail and the institution as the reason that you guys held the forum here?
And so we're really here to help each other. How do we work together? Koreans across the world have done so well in finance, and there are so many successful Korean financiers, and we think that it's time now that we actually try to work together, because if you think about how much we've grown in the last 25 years, whether it's as a Korean economy or just as global Korean financiers, we've all very much grown together, but we can grow so much more within the next 20 years.
아무튼 뭐 지금 오늘 너무 좋은 행사 마련해 주셨는데 이번 행사 시작으로 또 마지막으로 좀 앞으로의 포부, 앞으로의 뭐 또 새로운 어떤 플랜이 있다면은 좀 간략하게 들려주시면 좋을 것 같아요.
제 생각에 작년에는 이제 2년 전에는 한남동 브런치 시작을 했고 작년에는 여기 강남권에서 60명에서 행사를 시작했고 올해는 63빌딩에서 한 200 모이고 이제 시작인 것 같습니다. 그 대한민국의 위상은 뭐 뉴욕에서도 지금 뭐 한국적인 음식도 굉장히 예약하기도 어렵고 좀 여러모로 많은 관심 가져주시는데 이제 K-머니로 좀 여러모로 이제 전 세계적으로 알려지는 게 저희의 지금 큰 꿈을 보고 있습니다.
한코마 구독자 여러분, 오늘 저와 함께 한 첫 번째 현장 리포트 어떻게 보셨나요? 사실 여기가 뉴욕인지 여의도인지 잘 모를 정도로 많은 또 월가분들과 한국의 기관 투자자분들이 앞으로의 이 시장에 대해서 다양한 이야기를 하는 부분들을 전달을 드렸는데요. 물론 이 기관 투자자들의 이야기이지만은 또 개인 투자자분들께도 상당히 또 참고해 볼 만한 많은 내용들이 있었던 것 같습니다. 앞으로 저는 또 이렇게 현장을 열심히 돌아다니면서 여러분들의 투자에 도움이 될 만한 이야기들 다양하게 또 이렇게 전달을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 또 오늘은 약간 이제 월가와 한국을 잇는 방송이기 때문에 또 뉴욕 스타일로 마지막으로 쿠키 한 조각 집어 먹으면서 끝내도록 하겠습니다. 네, 여러분 성공 투자하세요.